The first round of the NBA draft was last night, and I think that ultimately it was a pretty interesting draft just in terms of no, we didn't necessarily have the superstar talent right at the top of it, but I still thought that there was a lot of intrigue in this draft. So I'm going to be running through the best moves from the first round that we saw take place last night. And I want to start with the Minnesota Timberwolves, who of course won over a lot of people from a national standpoint throughout their Western Conference Finals run. And it seemed like this was going to be a situation where the Wolves are just sort of looking to run it back into next year. Had a lot of success, but feel like they just need a little bit more postseason experience and they should be back in the picture. But they decided to get aggressive in this year's draft, where they moved up to the number 8 spot and they selected Kentucky guard Rob Dillingham. And they ultimately trade a 2030 pick swap and a 2031 unprotected first round pick. So the price wasn't exactly all too high either. They didn't have to give off any of their current assets as well. And in return, they end up getting a very promising young guard that I definitely think they needed backup guard play. We saw how much this team sort of at times lived and died by Mike Conley, who I love as a player, but at this point in his career, as he continues to get older, that wasn't going to be possible necessarily to continue to lean on him so heavily. So they trade for Dillingham, get that backup guard to Mike Conley. And we also did see in the Western Conference Finals, there were moments during this series where they just were in desperate need of having another creator take place for them. When Anthony Edwards was shut down, there wasn't anybody else you felt necessarily confident in trying to, go out and score, create for themselves in isolation. And that's where you bring in Dillingham, who is the epitome of a little bit of an irrational confidence guy, but he hits the shots is the thing as well. So I think that he is going to be such a fun fit with Minnesota. His energy is going to be super compatible with that of Anthony Edwards. So I think that this is a great fit for the two of them. And, as long as he is able to properly develop on defense, playing in a Minnesota system where obviously defense is their calling card, as long as he can be passable there, I think he cracks the rotation for the Timberwolves. Now, it is interesting the fact that the Timberwolves did just give up another first round pick. They, of course, gave up 5 and a swap for Rudy Gobert a couple off seasons ago. So they now only have control of their first round pick in one of the next 7 drafts. There are also a couple pick swaps now in 2026 and 2030. So technically they will have 3 first round picks in the next 7 years. But still, this is a Timberwolves team that I think people sort of overlook how old a number of their contributing pieces are. So I did just find that interesting, but I also agree with the deal to go out and get a talent like Dillingham, who I'm definitely a fan of. I was a little bit disappointed, though, because when this was first announced, we hadn't yet known that he was headed to Minnesota. The Spurs had the pick at the time and then traded the rights to him. I was really looking forward to Dillingham and Wembanyama playing alongside one another as well. They would have been a borderline must-watch team, I think. I mean, Wemby already is, this factor in himself, but Dillingham is just such a fun player that the highlight reels of him and Wemby would have been incredible. But Dillingham didn't exactly strike me as a Greg Popovich type of player. So maybe this is, all for the best. Now, it was a little bit disappointing for San Antonio, where you have this up-and-coming commodity in Victor Wembanyama, and everybody expects him to be one of the best players in the league, 3-4 years from now, if not sooner. And it could have been nice for them to just take a swing on one of these types of players. But that being said, this draft does have a bad reputation surrounding it. So maybe the Spurs just wanted to get in and get out as soon as possible. They took Stephon Castle with the 4th overall pick, which I also did really like for them. I think that there's going to be a chance that that defense gets really scary really soon with Castle on the perimeter and Wembanyama at the rim. But, I just think that Dillingham would have also been a really fun addition to that team. So I can't necessarily bury the Spurs and, claim that they are this outright loser of the draft. It just was maybe slightly disappointing because it would have been a ton of fun. But, ultimately, the Spurs, they get Castle, they get their guy, and they should be in a decent position, acquire some future draft capital as well. But the Timberwolves also stuck with their pick at 27 and took Terrence Shannon Jr., who is obviously now on the other end of some legal allegations that were, sort of hindering his pre-draft process and his expectations. He very easily could have been a lottery pick this year, but he is on the older end at, he's going to be 24 next year, so that obviously dings him as well in terms of a prospect for a lottery team. But, for the Timberwolves here with the 27th pick, I think there's a very real possibility Terrence Shannon Jr. can get some real minutes for them, be able to play in transition. He's a good defender. Now, the reliability of the three-point shot is really still what we're waiting on with Terrence Shannon Jr., but, at the same time, I just think that him, Dillingham, and Anthony Edwards is going to be such a little new fun nucleus where obviously it's Ant on a tier by himself and then these other two players. But I think that from an energy standpoint, and as NBA Twitter loves to put it, aura standpoint, I think that this team is going to be so much fun to watch. And they already were basically, must watch because of Ant. But I think they get that much more fun, and I'm definitely curious to see how the Timberwolves choose to add these players into the rotation. But I think that one of the bigger stories that was developing after that sort of shock at the 8th overall pick was the fall of Dalton Knecht. It comes outside of the lottery. Even, then it's the pick number 15 with the Heat, and they choose to go a different direction. And it was getting dark there for a minute for Knecht, but he does get picked up by the Lakers at number 17. I thought he was a consensus top 10 player in this draft, and I am still very high on him. This is a pretty good fit for him, all things considered. A nice selection, I think, for the Lakers, going out and get a scorer of this caliber, and he's going to be able to play actual minutes for them. We saw in these past couple years, they've gone with a little bit more of developmental prospects, and now they get somebody that I think you can throw Knecht on an NBA court and he will be able to find some spots, be a contributor on the offensive end. And we saw his defense improve throughout the course of the year as well, so I don't necessarily have any concerns. Again, when you're talking about the Lakers, for me, I think their approach should just be finding compatible players alongside, outside sort of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, not buying all into this third star strategy. And he's a really nice fit in there as well. So I did like that. I thought that whole stretch of picks from 15 to 18 were really solid for some of these playoff teams where we saw the Heat go with Kel'el Ware, sophomore center out of Indiana. The biggest concern with him was his freshman season at Oregon. There was a little bit of concern about his motor and such, and you now throw him into Heat culture, and I feel like it's just about impossible to not, have some level of intensity to you at that point. But it is a little interesting that they decided to go with the center, hours after paying Bam Adebayo this new contract extension, 3 years, $166 million. So you're drafting a backup here, but at the same time, there is a chance that these two could play with one another. They're different body types. Bam a little bit shorter. Ware is a true 7-footer, and he can stretch the floor as well. He is maybe even a little bit more dynamic than Bam. Now, you're taking Bam over him 10 times out of 10, but it could be an interesting double big wrinkle to sort of throw in there for Miami that I would definitely be curious in. Number 16 was the 76ers taking Jared McCain, freshman guard out of Duke. One of the best shooters in this draft, should very easily be able to work his way into the rotation for Philly, especially considering the fact they only have 3 players on the roster right now. Obviously, that'll change, but I definitely think McCain can be the 8th man on this Sixers team, if not better. So I like that pick a lot. Like we just talked about, connect to the Lakers. Number 18, Tristan da Silva, selected by the Orlando Magic, senior forward out of Colorado. And I think that he is just what the Magic need in terms of spacing and getting some of that shooting as well from outside of the backcourt where they already have enough guards. You end up getting somebody standing at 6'8" who can spread out the floor. He is just an overall very competent offensive player in terms of can put the ball on the floor, can make the right passes, can hit his shots, can finish fine as well. He played a little bit bigger in college. I expect him to be more of a traditional 3 probably in the NBA, maybe 4 in this modern game, but da Silva has a good chance to make their rotation, and at this point the Magic are not necessarily on this draft young players and develop them arc. They just saw them go to 7 against a good team in the first round of the playoffs, and they would really like to start capitalizing on the talent that has officially arrived for them, backed by Paolo Banchero. So I really liked all of those moves. Some other moves that we will quickly hit here. I want to talk about Reed Sheppard going number 3 to the Houston Rockets. I thought it was a great pickup for the Rockets. I would have preferred to see Sheppard end up somewhere where he can get a little bit more experience in terms of being a ball handler, but at the same time, he's going to make the Rockets better. I think that he is one of the safest prospects in this draft. He's going to find a role. I know the size is a little bit of a concern in terms of is his defense where he gets a lot of deflections. Is that going to translate to the NBA? I think it will, good enough, and that was a nice decision from the Rockets in my eyes. The Nuggets and the Celtics both made selections. Not just that, the Nuggets actually traded up to number 22 to go get DeRon Holmes, the junior big man out of Dayton. 6'9" with a 7'1" wingspan, was a 20-point-per-game scorer last season after transferring. He hasn't necessarily established himself in terms of consistency at the highest level of competition, being able to get it done offensively, but I do think that this is a pretty nice pickup for the Nuggets, who haven't really had a true backup to Jokic since he's entered his prime, and Holmes can probably not just back Jokic up, but could probably even play alongside him as well, I would say. So I did really like this pickup. Suns, by the way, who traded down out of this pick, also got Ryan Dunn. Kind of an interesting move there. They got him at number 28. I think the best defender in this draft class, so didn't hate that for the Suns either. The Celtics, though, at number 30, was really surprised to see them draft here, but they actually stick there and take Baylor Shireman, the senior guard out of Creighton, and I thought that this was a really nice pickup for the Celtics, where Shireman is somebody who could absolutely crack a rotation for a competitive team because of the fact that he is just such a known quantity on the offensive side of the ball, knowing that he can be a good shooter, can be a fine passer and a ball handler. He even averaged 9 rebounds per game from a guard position last year. So I thought that this was a pretty nice pickup in terms of value for the reigning champions, in terms of being able to get somebody that could be a known quantity for them this season. Obviously, expectations aren't all too high there. But Last couple picks here, just some few high potential freshmen that went on the later side for some good value. The Raptors took Jacoby Walter at number 19, freshman guard out of Baylor. The Pelicans took his teammate, big man Yves Missi, who I am high on. They get him at number 21. He could maybe even get some actual playing time for them, considering the fact that they are going to be probably without their starting center for next season. Jonas Valanciunas is a free agent this offseason. We saw them sort of defer away from him down the stretch of last year and in the postseason. So I think that Yves Missi definitely has an opportunity to work his way into the rotation there. And then the Jazz get former number 1 overall recruit Isaiah Collier with the 29th draft pick, and I thought that was incredible value for them, where this was a disastrous season for USC this past year. Collier ends up getting hurt. The team was never good, and he was sort of overshadowed a little bit by the Bronny James conversations as his teammate. But the Jazz just got, a player who you can see the speed and athleticism with him. I think that there is a very good chance that he could pan out, and getting him and Cody Williams, I thought the Jazz came out great in this draft. But let me know in the comments section what your favorite picks are. We're going to be diving into the other end of this conversation of my least favorite picks, but before we do so, we are going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.